Episode 2, Thrones and Altars, When Religion Becomes Power. In Episode 1, we saw that sacred texts carry fingerprints of older laws and hidden codes. In this next step, I want to follow those fingerprints into the halls of power to show how faith and rule became a single tool for shaping societies. In the ancient Near East, there was no separation of church and state. The pharaoh was a god king. The Babylonian ruler claimed divine appointment. Israel's monarchs were anointed by priests. Law was not only law, it was holy law. When a command is wrapped in the voice of God, disobedience becomes sin and punishment becomes eternal. This fusion of politics and spirituality is one of history's most effective control systems. The Hebrew Bible itself preserves traces of rival priesthoods and power struggles. Archaeology shows Yahweh worship evolving from a Canaanite pantheon. Early Israelites had household shrines and goddess figures beside their one God. Over time, as kingdoms centralized, prophets condemned these practices and a new narrative, monotheism, became state policy. What we now read as a timeless covenant was also a unifying political project. Christianity inherited this machinery. For 3 centuries, it was a persecuted minority movement with diverse texts and beliefs. Then Emperor Constantine legalized it, convened the Council of Nicaea, and under his successors it became the Roman Empire's official faith. The cross that once symbolized defiance of imperial violence became the banner under which emperors ruled. Bishops gained seats of power. Dissenting gospels were burned or buried. A religion of outcasts was recast as a religion of empire. Islam too arose in a world where spiritual and political authority were intertwined. Muhammad was not only a prophet but a statesman and commander. The Quran's early revelations about justice and mercy were joined by later verses on warfare, taxation, and governance as the Muslim community became polity. Caliphs would claim stewardship over both mosque and state. And the spread of Islam was as much a story of administration as of revelation. In each case, the pattern repeats. A charismatic figure speaks to the marginalized, a movement grows, texts are gathered, then leaders consolidate, codify, and wield the new faith to legitimize rule. Heresy becomes treason, questioning becomes rebellion, ritual becomes a citizenship test, the sacred story becomes the state story. Even the material form of scripture reflects this. Illuminated manuscripts commissioned by kings, authorized translations like the King James Bible produced under royal patronage, Quran standardized under Caliph Uthman. Every edit was a decision about which voices to amplify and which to silence. The faithful receive a finished product without footnotes on the politics behind it. Understanding this is not about cynicism. It's about context. It explains why the same text can be invoked to bless a peasant revolt and a king's army, to justify liberation and oppression. It shows how fear of hell and hope of paradise can be used as levers to move whole populations, and it helps us recognize when the same tactics are recycled today in the language of nationalism, culture wars, and identity politics. My purpose here is not to strip faith of meaning, but to strip away the illusion that it arrived untainted from heaven. Once we see how power co-authors scripture, we can approach belief as adults rather than subjects. We can choose what is ethical and life-giving and refuse what is manipulative and divisive. This is the thread we will keep pulling in the next episodes. We'll look more closely at specific traditions, their origin stories, the mechanisms they still use to bind communities. But for now, remember, whenever a law is declared sacred, ask who benefits. Whenever a text is said to be eternal, ask who edited it. That simple curiosity is the first step out of manipulation.